Hi, in this video I'll help you get to know your car a little better. At the end of this video I've put together a straightforward infographic that summarizes all the key points. Like, subscribe and comment below. It really helps.
Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to tackle a common issue for Chevrolet owners that can be a real headache, the error code P0231. If you've ever had this code pop up, you know it can be pretty stressful, but stick with me and we'll break it all down.
So there it is, that glowing amber check engine light. It's the one little light on your dash that can totally ruin your day. But hey, don't panic, it's not a stop sign, it's just a signal to do a little investigating. And today, we're zeroing in on one specific culprit.
So, how do we start solving this puzzle? Well, the code we're focused on is P0231. And instead of seeing it as some scary, complicated technical problem, let's just treat it like a clue. And, like any good mystery, once you understand the clues, the solution is usually right around the corner. The very first piece of our puzzle is just understanding the language. Once you know what the code is actually trying to tell you, you're honestly already halfway to fixing it. So let's dive into what this thing really means.
Okay, so here is the official super technical definition. P0231 means fuel pump feedback circuit low input. I know, that sounds like a whole lot of confusing jargon. But trust me, what it actually means is a lot simpler than it sounds.
This is the perfect way to think about it. Imagine your car's main computer, the PCM, is trying to have a little chat with your fuel pump. It sends out a signal, kind of like asking, "Hey, you working over there?" But with code P0231, the reply it gets back, that's the feedback, is either way too quiet or maybe it's just radio silence. The computer just knows the communication failed. And your car's computer is incredibly precise about this. This isn't just a random flicker. The code P0231 only gets triggered when the computer sees that voltage drop by more than 4 volts on that feedback line. And, get this, it has to last for at least 2 solid seconds. It's that specific. All right, so now that we know what the code means, our next job is to figure out why it's happening. It's time to play detective and line up the usual suspects behind this communication breakdown.
As you can see, our investigation really points to 4 main suspects. First up, the feedback circuit itself. Second, the power that's being supplied to the fuel pump relay. Third, the control circuit for that same relay. And finally, the least likely culprit of them all, the main computer or PCM. So let's look at how we can investigate each one.
Knowing the potential causes gives us a really clear roadmap. We can now go through our list of suspects, one by one, and connect each potential problem directly to its most likely solution.
Our first, and honestly most common suspect, is the feedback circuit itself. Here's a great rule of thumb. Most of the time, the problem is with the wiring, not some super expensive computer part. Think of the wire like a garden hose. An open circuit is like a complete cut in the hose. Nothing's getting through. A short to ground is like a big leak in the hose. The signal is escaping before it ever gets to where it needs to go. So the fix here is all about a good old-fashioned inspection. You'll want to trace the wiring for that feedback circuit, looking for any visible damage, any corrosion, or maybe just some loose connections. Repairing or replacing a bad section of wire is often all it takes to solve this thing.
If the wiring checks out, we move to suspect number 2, the fuel pump relay. A relay is just a small electronic switch. It lets a tiny low-power signal from the computer control the big, high-power fuel pump. If the relay itself is broken, or if it isn't getting power, it can't switch on the pump, and that can trigger our error code. The fix here is just as direct. First, you'll examine the power circuit that leads to the relay. If that circuit is intact, then the relay itself is the likely problem. And hey, the good news is, replacing a relay is typically a pretty straightforward and inexpensive repair.
Next up is the other side of that relay, the control circuit. This is the wire the PCM uses to actually tell the relay when to turn on and off. If this command line is open or maybe it's shorted to power, the relay won't get the correct command. And that leads right back to our P0231 code.
Similar to our first suspect, the solution here involves checking the integrity of that control circuit. You're looking for any breaks or shorts in the wiring between the PCM and the fuel pump relay and just repairing them as needed.
This brings us to our final and least common suspect, the powertrain control module, or PCM. This is the brain of the vehicle. And while it's pretty rare, it is possible for the brain itself to fail, causing it to misinterpret signals or send out faulty commands.
Now, this is your absolute last resort. You only want to even think about replacing the PCM after you've checked everything else. If all the wires and the relay are good, then it's time to suspect the computer itself is faulty. And if that's the case, the only fix is a replacement.
So, after going through all of that, what's the most important thing to remember? Let's boil this all down to the one core idea you should walk away with.
This quote really says it all, doesn't it? The whole point here isn't just to list a bunch of facts, it's to empower you. Understanding the what and the why behind code P0231 is the single most critical step in getting your vehicle running smoothly again. And that's our look at solving the P0231 puzzle. By breaking it down from a confusing code into a series of logical checks, you can approach the problem with confidence. So, are you ready to tackle that check engine light and get back on the road?